Konnichiwa minasan, Puchan desu, and welcome back to Easy Anime Japanese Lesson 9. Today we're going to be talking about IRU verbs. So, like we said before, all verbs end in U. But they don't all end in the letter U. They can end in any of these different sounds. They all end with the U sound, but they can end in ru, ku, gu. They can end in quite a few. So what we're going to do is we're going to make one video for each of these endings. So we're going to take one verb with the ending of one of these, and we will take that verb and we'll teach you how to conjugate it into all of the different ways you can. And that's what we think is going to be the most simple way. So you can say, oh, this verb's like this one, so you conjugate it like this one. So today we are going to be doing the IRU verbs. So our example verb is going to be miru, which is to see. Miru is an IRU verb, and IRU verbs we think are the easiest because we just drop the ru to get the stem and then add the ending. So it is probably the easiest one to conjugate. So some of you guys have asked, what is a verb stem? And a verb stem is the part that you keep before you add the suffix or the ending to the verb. So we're going to show you a few more examples just to make it not as crazy and to make you guys understand a little bit more, because it sounds kind of complicated, but it really isn't. So let's start with the polite conjugations. And the polite conjugations are things you would say to like your boss or your teacher or somebody you just met that you want to show respect to. So these are more of the respectful things you would learn in school. So like we said, miru is an IRU verb, so we just drop the ru and add the mas form. So mimas is I look, mimasen is I don't look, mimashita is I looked, and mimasen deshita is I didn't look. So for different verbs, the stem will change, but you will always add mas, masen, masen deshita, mashita. You will always add those to the end of the stem to make it polite. So let me tell you a couple of the other polite forms for miru. There is mimashoo, which means let's look, and mite, which means I want to look. So now I'm going to tell you a few of the more plain and casual ways to say it, which might be a little bit rude if you don't know who you're talking to, but it's more something you will hear in anime a lot and you would use if you're just talking to a friend. Present tense is miru, I look. Past tense is mita, I looked. Negative is minai, I don't look. And past negative is minakata, I didn't look. So in Prince of Tennis 2, one of the characters is saying, did you see that? And he's saying mitaka, which is using the past tense form of miru, and the ka, which is the question marker. Mitaka. So just like with the politer forms, the stem will change depending on what verb you have, but you always will use ta, nai, and nakata. So now we're going to talk about the command forms. So like we said, the stem is mi because you drop the ru, and you add te to get mite, which means look. And to make it a little bit more polite, you can say mite kudasai, please look. And to make it more forceful, you can say mite kure, which means look. So to make IRU verbs way more forceful and rude, you change the ru to ro, so you'd get miro, which is look, almost something you would use with your pet, which is super duper 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 rude. So in the first episode of Trinity 7, the main character tells his best friend to go look at something over there, and he says are o miro. And the miro form isn't as rude because he's talking to his best friend, so it doesn't come off as super duper rude.
Are o miro.
So in the same episode of Bleach, Ichigo is saying, look over there, which is the same from Trinity 7, Ario Miro, but this time it is meant to be rude because he is saying it to people he does not like. Speaking of rude conjugations, make a negative command, don't do it, you just add na. So miru na means don't look, in a very rude way. So the command form, like we just talked about, which is mite, is one of the most used conjugations in all of Japanese, even anime Japanese, because you can add a lot of verbs after it to change the meaning. So there are a ton of these, but we're only going to cover 3 today. So one of the reasons why we chose miru as our iru example, because it's also one of the helper verbs you can put on the end of a verb in mite form to change the meaning. So miru after a verb in the te form means to try and do it. So mite, miru is to try and look. But if you want to command someone to do it, mite is try and look. So in another episode of Sword Art Online, Kirito is telling Klein to look closer or look better, and he says, yokku mite miru. Try and look better.
アウトボタンがねえよ。よく見てみろよ。
So in this episode of Sword Art Online, Kirito is telling Asuna to try putting some butter on her bread. So he's using the te miru form to tell her to try and do it.
そのパンに使ってみろよ。
One of the other common helper verbs is another one of the IRU verbs. In fact, it is IRU itself. And IRU after a verb in mite form means to be in the process of doing that thing. So mite IRU means I am looking. So in the first episode of Bleach, Ichigo is telling Rukia that he doesn't believe in things he can't see, and Rukia is saying that he is seeing her right now. So she says, mite iru, which means you are in the process of seeing me.
見えないもんは信じない主義なんでね。今見ているではないか。
And to make that a little bit more polite, we are going to conjugate iru into its more polite form. And most of you, if you were paying attention, should know how to do this. You drop the ru and add mas. So mite imas means I am looking in a polite way. So the last te form we're going to be talking about is the moi form, which means it is okay to do that verb. So mite moi is it's okay to look. And mite moi ka is it okay to look? Like if something really, really terrible happened, you would cover your eyes and say mite moi ka to ask, is it okay to look? An important thing you need to know is all verbs that end in iru aren't all iru verbs. Some of them are treated like ru verbs. So that's something you're going to have to memorize. There's no rule for it or anything, but don't worry about that for now. So I hope you learned a whole lot about the iru verbs today. It may seem like a lot, but I promise it'll get better if you stick with me and ganbatte. So, arigato minasan. Ta-da!